Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Infernity Yugioh deck profile for July 2022. The Infernities are, I believe, the last deck that I have not covered from the Ghosts from the Past booster set, the Second Haunting, that was just released a couple months ago. With it, we got some new Infernity support to definitely help with the overall playstyle of the deck, which is to have no cards in your hand and then utilize all the different card effects of the Infernity monsters in your graveyard or on the field. I really do like the build. It works more with all the different synchro monsters you can make, along with the link summons, being able to summon out a lot of different monsters, and the many different spell and traps we have for the Infernities as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off first with the main deck monsters, with some of our newer ones from the Ghosts in the Past set, being Infernity Sage. You run 3 copies of this card. It's a really good tuner. During your main phase, you can discard your entire hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Infernity monster from your deck to the graveyard. You must have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this effect, and you can only use each effect of Infernity Sage once per turn. So any unnecessary cards you have in your hand can easily be discarded thanks to your Infernity Sage, being able to just set them up in your graveyard or have the requirements by setting some other cards like your back row spell and traps on the field to use after you discard the other cards from your hand. It's a definite 3 of being able to use it really well with your level 6 Infernity Doom Archfiend to then get out some of your other synchro plays, including your Infernity Doom Dragon or even your 100 Eyes Dragon, being the requirements for both of those monsters for the synchro summon. I also run 3 Infernity Wildcat. This was a newer card in the Phantom Rage set. You can special summon this card from your hand by sending 1 other Infernity monster in your hand to the graveyard. You can only special summon Wildcat once per turn this way, and while you have no cards in your hand, you can banish 1 Infernity monster from your graveyard to increase or decrease the level of this card by 1 until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Wildcat once per turn. Once again, another setup card for the graveyard, being able to special summon this card out, not taking up your normal summon, which you can save for some of your other tuner plays, like the Infernity Sage, and get that other Infernity monster in the graveyard for you to use, giving you more of an option for cards when they're special summoned down to the field, like your Infernity Necromancer, which we'll get to in just a bit. The last 3 of I run, now you can either run the spell card Void Apocalypse, which can set up more of the Infernities in your graveyard. Going for more of a pure Infernity build, I run the 3 Infernity Beetle for more special summon power. While you have no cards in your hand, you contribute this card to special summon up to 2 Infernity Beetle from your deck, so it's just special summon power. You get the 2 Beetle on the field that you can make use of, and that's why I like to play. But once again, if you didn't want to run Infernity Beetle and stick more to the Fiend setup that the deck has, you can always take this card out and run 3 of the spell card called Void Apocalypse, being more of an Infernoid spell card, but great for the graveyard setup, using it on the field. For some of the lower numbers for our Infernity monsters, I run 2 Infernity Necromancer. When this card's normal summon is changed to defense position, and while you have no cards in your hand, this card gains the following effect. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 Infernity monster from your graveyard, except for Infernity Necromancer, being able to utilize the many different Infernity monsters you may have set up in the graveyard thanks to Wildcat and Sage with this card on the field, just by having no cards in your hand, giving you that resource to summon out any of the other Infernity monsters, and with some of those other cards being for special summon plays like Infernity Conjurer. While you have no cards in your hand, monsters your opponent control lose 800 attack, and while you have no cards in your hand and this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Conjurer once per turn. Once again, the graveyard setup or the discard off of cards like Wildcat or your Infernity Sage to special summon this card onto the field, and thanks to Wildcat and Conjurer, those can be the 2 monsters needed for you to summon out your level 6 Infernity Doom Archfiend. I also run 2 Infernity General, more of a setup card from the graveyard. If you have no cards in your hand, you can banish this card in your graveyard, target 2 level 3 or lower Infernity monsters in your graveyard, and special summon them in the graveyard, but their effects are negated. So that gives you resources for plenty of level 3s like Necromancer, Conjurer, and Wildcat, just to summon back onto the field using this card. It also says level 3 or lower, so you do have access to all the other cards we mentioned, but just setting it up in the graveyard is a lot more easier to do, because if it is in your hand, you can just send it to the graveyard with cards like Infernity Sage. And for more special summoning from the graveyard, I also run 2 Infernity Mirage. You just have to tribute this card if you have no cards in your hand to special summon 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard, so you can even get out cards like Infernity General that were already in your graveyard back onto the field using this card. And then for some of the one-ofs for the Infernity monsters, I run 1 of the new Infernity Pawn. During your draw phase, if you have no cards in your hand, instead of conducting your normal draw, you can banish this card from your graveyard to activate one of these effects. You can place 1 Infernity card from your deck on top of of your deck, or you can set one Void, Spell, or Trap directly from your deck. So one of the newer cards that we have being a Void card is Contract with the Void, being able to give you more of a special summon option for your level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro monster from the graveyard, but being able to set that up can be a great late game recovery play. One of the Infernity Archfiend, this card is at 1, so that's why we're playing it at that number. When you have no cards in your hand and you draw this card, you can reveal it to special summon it, and when this card is special summoned and you have no cards in your hand, you can add one Infernity card from your deck to your hand, being able to then add the immensely powerful Infernity Launcher, which can just continue your plays from there, and all this can be set up with your Infernity Pawn. I also run the one Infernity Avenger, more of a special summon play with this level 1 tuner as well, being a level 1 tuner and being able to use it with your Infernity General, being a level 7 monster, gives you another synchro play using those cards. And the one Infernity Patriarch, if this is the only card in your hand, you can special summon it from your hand. You can only special summon Patriarch once per turn this way, and while you have no cards in your hand, if an Infernity monster you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. More of a protection setup in the graveyard, but I feel like all of these are just necessary one-ups to use in the deck. For more of the generic monsters that we run, I also run 2 Tour Guide from the Underworld for more of a special summon option with our level 3 Fiend monsters, including Infernity Necromancer, Infernity Wildcat, all available to special summon out thanks to Tour Guide. And I also run 1 Dark Grepher and also 1 Armageddon Knight, with Dark Grepher being able to special summon this card by discarding a level 5 or higher Dark monster. This can be done with, once again, Infernity General, setting it up in the graveyard while giving us a special summon on the field to use with this card. And Armageddon Knight, once again, just going in and be able to send all the many other setup cards we may need for the many different Infernity monsters that we run in the deck, which will do much better for the setup in the graveyard. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 2 of the new Contract with the Void. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand, discard your entire hand. Then you can special summon 1 Infernity monster or 1 level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro monster from your graveyard. So this can once again set up your hand to have no cards in your hand, and then just special summon another card out onto the field. Being able to special summon Infernity Archfiend can give you the additional search if it's in your graveyard, so a great way to set up the no cards in hand while still giving you a special summon. I also run the 1 Infernity Launcher for once per turn. You can send 1 Infernity monster from your hand to the graveyard, and you can send this card to the graveyard, then target up to 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard, special summon them. You must have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this. Now, this is another card that is at 1, but being able to utilize it for just more and more special summons, and this is the trend you'll see with plenty of different Infernity cards we have in this deck just to keep those plays going. And the fact that it is searchable by Archfiend means you may want to set up Archfiend in the graveyard as quickly as you can to summon it back onto the field. And I also run 1 Zero Max. You activate this only if no cards in your hand. Select 1 Infernity monster in your graveyard. Special summon it. Destroy all face-up monsters on the field with attack lower than the special summon monster's attack. And you cannot conduct your battle phase the same turn you activate this card. But being able to summon out some of the bigger monsters on the field, including Infernity General, can clear a good number of monsters your opponent may have that are just a little more pesky to get over. And lastly, for the Infernity spells, 1 Infernity Paranoia, which all these cards, aside from Zero Max, are searchable with Archfiend. With Infernity Paranoia, you tribute 1 Dark monster to special summon 1 Infernity monster from your deck or graveyard with the same level but a different name, but negate their effects. And during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it to target 1 Infernity monster in your graveyard and add to your hand. So with this option for the special summon of a different level, if you have a level 4 Infernity, you can summon out some of the more important ones. The option with Infernity Mirage to summon out your Infernity Pawn can even go for more setup with this card. It all comes down to just what monster you have. You have plenty of monsters to work, and that's another reason why I like the option of Infernity Beetle being a level 2, because you can use Infernity Paranoia with Beetle to summon out your Infernity Sage onto the field, both being dark attributes. For more of the generic spell lineup, I also run 2 Allure of Darkness, just more draw power with the good majority of all the cards in our main deck being dark, so you can get more draws for some of the doubles you may have. I also run, for some of the 1-ups, the 1 Charge into a Dark World. Now, you can run 1 for 1 over this card. This is more just of a graveyard setup for more additional Fiend monsters. 1 card destruction, once again, setting up the graveyard again while giving us more hand options, and getting rid of more cards in our hand to use. 1 Reinforcement to the Army for searching out the Dark Grepher or the Armageddon Knight. 1 Foolish Burial, setting up Infernity Archfiend, probably my favorite play to do with this card, and special summoning it back onto the field with cards like Monster Reborn. And that is it for the spells. Moving on now to the traps. For the traps, I run 2 Infernity Barrier and 1 Infernity Suppression. Now with the Barrier, while you have, when your opponent activates a spell or trap, while you have no cards in your hand, and while you control a face-up attack position Infernity monster, you negate the activation and destroy that card. It's not a once per turn, so opening up multiples of this is a big plus there. And with Infernity Suppression, if you have no cards in your hand, you can activate this card the turn it was set. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control an Infernity monster, negate the effect and you inflict damage to your opponent equal to the activated monster's level times 100. So being able to set this card and then go for the discard play that you would try with some of your other Infernity cards means you can at least activate the turn it was set, which is great because then you have that option with your other Infernity monster, which you will more than likely have on the field with the invested play for the Synchro Summon. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 Infernity Doom Archfiend, with this card needing 1 tuner and one non-tuner monster. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, negate its effects, and then if you have no cards in your hand, destroy it. And while you have no cards in your hand, if it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage that it inflicts to your opponent becomes doubled. And a Dark Synchro monster that was summoned using this card can make up to 2 attacks during each battle phase. That could be enough to finish your opponent right then and there, because some of the bigger Synchro monsters you want to go into are Void Ogre Dragon being the first Dark Synchro monster, Infernity Doom Dragon as well. With Void Ogre Dragon, you have a negate for a spell or trap on the field while you have no hand cards. Infernity Doom Dragon, if you have no hand cards, you can select one monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its attack. It cannot attack on the turn you activate this, but still great for the burn damage setup. But also the 100 Eyes Dragon. Once per turn, you can banish 1 level 6 or lower Dark Effect monster from your graveyard until the end phase. This card's name becomes that banished monster, and replace this card's effect with that banished monster's effects. And if it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, it has an Earthbound Immortal search, but you're mostly going to use it just because being able to use the destruction effect of Infernity Doom Archfiend and then use it again with 100 Eyes Demon Dragon is that much stronger of a play, having the pop and negation effect twice in the same turn. For more of the generic synchros, I also run the 1 F.A. Dawn Dragster for more spell and trap negation, and 1 Borreload Savage Dragon for just the generic negation as long as you have the Link monsters, which for the Link monsters, we're running 1 Cherubini Ebon Angel of the Abyss for more send power to the graveyard, with just needing 2 level 3 monsters, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, along with 1 Crystron Halka Fibrax, special summoning tuners and destroying your opponent's spell traps while discarding other cards, 1 Beat Cop from the Underworld, more protection for some of your other monsters, and being able to utilize this effect because we mostly just use Dark Attribute monsters for the plays anyway. And 1 Wee Witch's Apprentice, along with 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 Link Karibo, and then lastly for the Link monsters, the 1 Apollosa Bow of the Goddess for more monster effect negation, being able to get out some pretty big swarms of monsters onto the field to synchro summon or Link summon into this card. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, when you have your setup, that is a big part of it. So whether you set up your graveyard with your Infernity cards, whether it be with your Armageddon Knight, and depending on what you go for with the special summon, if you activate the newest one, being the Contract with the Void, and also if you have the special summon option, you can go for first your normal summon or set, depending on if you have the Wildcat or even the option of Necromancer on the field. You can then discard the remaining cards to the graveyard, which if you have the Infernity Archfiend in your hand or even the Infernity Pawn, that discard with your Contract with the Void, being able to special summon 1 of the Infernity monsters or the Dark Dragon Synchro adds to the play just more and more. So the more Infernity cards you discard off of this spell, the better. And having that 1 additional monster you may just want to summon out, including Necromancer to have an additional special summon, discarding with this card, discarding your entire hand, then special summoning 1 Infernoid, I keep saying Infernoid, Infernity monster, means you can special summon out your Infernity Archfiend onto the field, getting the search of your Infernity Archfiend, which then you can add your Infernity Launcher, being able to send 1 Infernity monster from your hand to the graveyard, which your hand should be clear thanks to this spell, being able to then use Launcher by sending it to the graveyard to target up to 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard and special summon them onto the field, being the resource used for the discard of your Contract with the Void. Now, more of this special summon can be done with earlier plays if you had the Wildcat and you had at least the 1 other Infernity monster to special summon out the Wildcat, and then you use the Contract with the Void, sending the other Infernity monsters. You can have the same play, but just with an additional different special summon, but still use the Necromancer you special summoned out onto the field using the Launcher that you got with the Archfiend on the field, since you special summoned it off of the Contract with the Void, can still give you that play to get 1 additional monster, giving you the 5 needed resources to then either go into your synchro play of choice with having the 2 level 3s, one of them being the tuner, on the field, and then having the rest to use for whatever extra deck play you wanted to go for. It all comes down to what play you want to utilize, but a lot of the generic monsters in the extra deck can be easily used for so. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, the Ghosts from the Past definitely gave us some pretty nice Infernity support, so I was happy to be able to update you with the deck. I think I've done the majority of the Ghosts from the Past decks since the release of the set. If there's any I missed, I'll definitely look back on it and work towards doing a deck profile for them. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.